to make a gradient in Illustrator, what you're doing is just defining a special fill. Okay. So, for example, in the teapot here, you have within each of these areas that are defined, we actually have multiple tones, right? You see that. It's easy enough to just say, okay, let's just flatten them and make them into single tonalities. But you might want to try adding a fill that's differentiating. What you're going to do is select a path and then apply a gradient fill. The way you do that most easily, and honestly I'm going to sort of push you towards using these keyboard shortcuts, is, let me just bring out our toolbox. Here's our toolbox, right? Just dragging that from the left side. If you notice down at the bottom of our toolbox here, I'm bringing our attention down to the bottom of our toolbox. Everybody sort of can see this on your screen. I'm just making it really big, right? We have our fill definition right here, and right now my fill is nothing, right? I have no fill. We have my stroke definition, and I can say, oh, I'd rather work on my stroke, I'd rather work on my fill by single clicking on each of these. I can define a stroke or fill, and I don't recommend doing this, by double clicking on one of these. It brings up your color picker, right? But beneath that, we have these three little buttons. Oops, sorry. These three little buttons: color, gradient, and none. And those three buttons correspond to comma, period, and slash, or less, greater than, less than, greater than, and question mark. However you look at those three buttons on your keyboard. Okay? So whenever you click on one of these, it's applied to the active either fill or stroke. Okay? So let's say I want to make my fill black. I can just click on my color here and see it turns black. Let's say I want it to be none. I can click on none and it goes to none. If I want it to be a gradient, I simply click on the middle one here and it turns into a gradient. Honestly, I don't click on it. I use the keyboard shortcuts. Keyboard equivalents are, right, I'm not clicking. Fill, right, solid color is comma, gradient is period, and then none is slash. Okay. So get used to using those. It's a good habit and set of techniques to have on hand. It really speeds things up. Okay, so I'm working down here. I just sort of pulled that up to show you where I'm working. Now I'm going to select gradient for this path right here. Now you can see that I've created a gradient that goes from light to dark. It doesn't actually, I don't really want that. I want it going from, let me just get off this. I kind of want it to imitate the gradient we have here, which is from light to dark, right? By default, it's just sort of populating that fill with the default gradient, okay? So, I choose my path. Sorry, people. I choose my path, I fill it. And now I need to manipulate that gradient fill, okay? The way you manipulate your gradient fill is with your gradient tool. So first you make the fill, the gradient fill, and then you manipulate it with the tool. So to use the tool, you simply click on it, and then you click and drag to define where your gradient begins and where your gradient ends. Okay. So then there's one more component I'm going to get to in a second. So you can define a gradient, and then you manipulate it. And then the third thing you can do is define the colors used in your gradient. And the way you do that is by, over here, we have our gradient palette hidden. Okay, so there's three sort of places where I really want you to sort of get comfortable with everything before I throw gradient at you, because there are different places you have to work in order to actually get it working. So here we have our gradient palette. And I'm going to just pull this out over here, since we know how to do that. And here, it's showing us the colors that we're blending from and to. Now let's say I don't want to use those colors. I want to use something that maybe from my color guide. Right? I can simply drag colors into, let me make this bigger, it's too small. Down here are the colors that are being used, black and white. Okay? If I click and drag into either of these, I'm redefining the color of the gradient. Okay? So maybe I'll take this tint right there and bring it to that. So now I have a very different gradient that I'm defining. Yeah?
You can only have two colors?
No, good question. You could have multiple colors. And the way you define where you want another color to come in, say I want to make this sort of a rainbow or metallic-y kind of thing, you see how, really got to zoom in here so you see the mouse pointer. You see how if I put my mouse pointer in this area beneath the slider, exactly. So you click, you get another one of these, and then you just drag another color into that. So let's say I wanted to, I don't know, drag that in there. Choose that to radial. Let me make this more evident what's going on. I'm going to change that to dark, change this to something light. Right. So yeah, you can definitely have a gradient with multiple colors. And another thing that sort of happened, let me just make a new shape so you can see. So this is the gradient that I've created, just sort of not within a strange path. The other thing you could do is have a gradient that's not linear, it's not a set of bars, instead it's radial. And it's right here under type. A radial gradient sort of blends from the outside. Yeah?
Can you make the gradient follow like a path? Like, let's say like a line like that, and follow that?
That's a brush, and I'm going to show you that in just a little while. But yeah, not exactly, but we can work around and get things to sort of be that way. And that's really it for gradient. Gradient, you need to set up your gradient, right? You select your path, and then you set your fill to gradient. You use your gradient tool, and then you use your gradient palette. Is it something I recommend using? Not really. Not really. It's worth it for specific things like metal. If you're trying to portray metal, I did a really bad job here demonstrating how metal could look. But I mean, that actually does kind of look metallic-y already, right? I mean, you see this and it sort of feels like metal because that's how we've always perceived it. Honestly, too many gradients make your image too busy. Your eye doesn't know where to go. A few gradients kind of enhance things. Absolutely. You know, the question of can you make this into a path, let me just double check on that really fast here. I might have just lied about that for 1 second. Let's see if I make this into an X. Let's change that, change this into a gradient. Yeah, here's a gradient. I'm sorry. Let me see if I can just make this. Yeah, you can just simply assign gradient to be your stroke. But you see it doesn't really follow, it doesn't like sort of curve along. Yeah, it'll just make a fill for the stroke. I'll show you how to make it curve in a second when we do brushes. So I didn't lie. That's it. That's it. It's simple. Apply it down here, which is the period button. Use your gradient tool, which is the letter G, and then open up your gradient palette, and then add colors in there. Okay. everybody try that. Everybody go ahead and make a shape even if you don't want to use it. Try it once, make sure you know how to use it, and then go back to working on your piece, okay?